What's up, y'all? We are back with another edition of DNVR Rams Live. We are talking about a massive road opportunity for Colorado State against Oregon State. Give a couple of thoughts on the latest Pac-12 edition with Gonzaga coming over, Mountain West Power Rankings, picks, and more. Good morning, y'all. We are back with another edition of DNVR Rams Live.
Let's go.
Back in studio, first time in a couple of weeks. It's been chaotic, so I'm stoked to be here talking ball with my good friend, my co-partner in crime.
I missed you.
Andre Simone. I missed you too, man. How you doing?
Everything that could happen has happened since we last spoke on a podcast.
It's like a different world.
My goodness, Justin. It is a different world. It is. Holy cow. How's that even possible? No, I'm hyped to get back with you. I've never been more in on college football or more out on the NFL. I'm excited for everything that's happening in Rams world, Ram Nation for sure. And yeah, man.
What a weekend, by the way. Like, it was kind of the perfect weekend to be on a bye from CSU's perspective. If you're a DNVR member, which I highly encourage you to be, I wrote a preview with just some games and some things to watch for around the Mountain West. Got to scout some upcoming opponents. We got kind of a nice little look at who the top contenders in the league are, and we're going to talk about that when we get into power rankings. UNLV, Boise there for real. Thank God CSU does not have to play them this year.
Dude.
But man, just for college football as a whole, this was a big win. That Georgia-Alabama game obviously was the highlight, but it was just good games all day. A whole lot of fun. And then to go from that to like the Broncos-Jets was just like, oh my God, sometimes the NFL is the worst.
Watching that in the 11 slate and then what garbage the afternoon slate is.
It's been brutal from a national game standpoint. The broadcast games on CBS and Fox have been lame, and that's just what makes college so fun.
How does a sport that literally doesn't have a governing body give us a better product than the NFL, man? It's so nuts.
On every level, and it's not just that the games are more exciting. It's that, like, top to bottom, there's better play happening. Like, the quarterback play is more intriguing. There's more interesting guys at the skill positions doing more
O-line play
exciting
is so
stuff.
much better. Guys can tackle. What a concept.
I do wonder how much some of that has to do with the just the lack of contact, like especially early on in NFL camps. I think you just get some pretty crappy play in the first month as a whole.
Yeah, that's bona fide preseason.
And there's some of that in college football too. But we're getting into the heart of the season here. This is a big opportunity for CSU, kind of setting the scene for this matchup with Oregon State. I think this is your biggest chance at a road win in a decade. I think you got to go back to that Boston College game in 2014. When you look at the moments that CSU has had on the road over the last decade, there aren't that many, like signature wins. You've got that Boston College win in 2014 with Grayson and co. Other than that, I think you got to go back to the season finale in 2016, where CSU goes into San Diego and just beats down an electric San Diego State team at the time. I mean, that's when they had like Penny and Pumphrey, and they were really running the hell out of the football, and the Rams kind of kicked their ass. Other than that, it's like Wyoming in 2015, Toledo in 2021, as brutal as the Daz era was, that was actually kind of an exciting win at the time. Fresno in 2015. I mean, it has been bleak. You need a signature win to generate some excitement, and particularly after kind of laying an egg against CU in Texas. I feel like this is a big litmus moment for this program. It's year 3. We've talked so much about the pressure going into the season, needing to show something. Yes, you're at 2-2, which on paper is where you most realistically were always going to be. They have not passed the eye test, though, really at all. And to me, like, this game,
I think that's fair.
Going on the road against Oregon State, yes, you are double-digit underdogs, so it's definitely a a tall task for you.
Corvallis is no fun to get to.
It's brutal. But I mean, you're
Just
going to be a
insane.
conference. You're going to be conference mates in 2 years.
It's
Like this,
step-up
you got to
time.
show something.
Yeah, no doubt. It's step up time, and something's got to get built, right? Like, I think we felt good about the progression from year 1 to year 2. The progression year 2 to year 3 has been lacking. You're entering that part of the season where you can turn that around, refigure out the narrative, right? Oregon State's gone through a lot of changes. The one thing you had coming into this season was continuity. See if you can take advantage of that and see if you can start building more of an identity.
Being fair to the Rams, you have basically played this entire season without your best offensive and defensive player. Gatkuth has yet to play. He is hopefully, knock on wood, going to make his season debut this weekend. It sounds like, Norvell pretty optimistic. Both him and Horton have practiced this week. Should get him back, should get Jack Howell back, who looks like got a concussion against UTEP, but is going to be cleared for this weekend. Tory, obviously, I mean, he basically didn't play against CU. I know he played a little bit in those first 2 quarters, but he was highly limited. Didn't play the entire second half against Greeley. Missed this last game. I mean, so he's missed, 10 quarters of football.
And then had a bye week.
So
you hope.
You hope that this offense still has an opportunity to kind of take the shape that we expected. You hope that Newer coming back allows you to generate more pass rush, which has been spotty. There have been moments, Gabe Kershke in particular, the Wisconsin transfer, it's got a really bright future. I think he's going to be an all-conference player next year. But just having Newer opposite of him and basically getting to open up some opportunities for him, much like, Mo opened up things for Newer last year when he made all those tackles for loss, that's going to be huge. And to me, like, that's kind of the where I would start from a keys for CSU perspective. You need your stars to shine in this game. Braden Fowler-Nicolosi has not looked even remotely like the quarterback we saw last year.
I know.
Been some frustrating decisions. In his defense, the receivers have not been good. Guys have got to step up. People aren't getting open. The drops have been problematic. Schematically, they've been a lot more conservative. They still have some air raid principles in the passing game, but they haven't been an air raid offense. It's been more of like a hybrid West Coast offense. And Norvell even kind of talked about that when I talked to him yesterday. He was like, we're running a lot of principles in the ground game that, you saw under Mike Shanahan with the Broncos. It's more of those zone schemes. You're trying to run some of those stretch runs. And they've had some success with it. The problem is if you're going to run the ball like that, you've got to create the explosives over the top, which has just been lacking for CSU. I mean, yes, the 49ers, at their core, this is what they want to do. Most of the time, they're going to run it down your throat. They also create about 2 plays a quarter that go for 40-plus yards. And the Rams have got to open things up if they're going to run on the ball, which is encouraging because they couldn't run the ball last year, and it cost them some games. The problem is, over the last 3 years, it feels like 2022, they could run the ball, they couldn't throw the ball. Last year, they could throw the ball, they couldn't run the ball. Now they can run the ball again, and where's the passing offense? A lot of factors that go into that. Your stars have to step up because these next 3 weeks swing your season. I mean, if you go into the Springs, a place you haven't won in 20 years, sitting at 2-4 with the possibility of coming home at 2-5, and you still have to play the border war, you still got to go to Fresno. I mean, New Mexico looks frisky with Devin Dampier. That trip to Nevada is no gimme. You could be in a really bad spot, and you have to find a way to show something these next couple of weeks, and it all starts this weekend. Yeah,
you have to at least set yourself up to be in some sort of Mountain West contention and some sort of bowl contention. You blow these next 3 games, that's over. That's already out, and we're in October, and it feels all too familiar, right?
Yeah, we're sitting where we've been 8 times out of the last 10 years, where you're 2 weeks out of Halloween and the season's already over. You're starting to look at the ESPN articles of like who the hot coaching candidates are, who's on the hot seat, all of that stuff ramps up. And
it's all.
I don't want to, I've made it pretty clear since the offseason, like it was bowl or bust for this team. And I don't even think it's just 6-6. I think with 7 home games and the amount of first year teams that you had on the schedule, you got to win 7 games. You got to get a trophy 100%. Game that you have not won now. And with fans in the stands since 2016, which is just embarrassing.
Air Force and Wyoming just became more important than we could have ever imagined.
And even then, like as season. Bad as they look, if you have your doubts. If you're 6-6 and you beat those 2 teams, I think you're in the postseason. You can talk yourself into that being a success, but I still think it would feel a little bit hollow. And I think you have to show something against one of these teams that, seems better than you, which is like an Oregon State and San Jose State offensively, man, they have looked explosive as hell. Like, that's why, to me, these next 2 weeks in particular, like, really swing your season one way or the other.
No, I mean, definitely. And I think I am most comforted by the Rams' ability to stop the run.
Has been encouraging. Haven't played a ton of like ground dominant opponents. But
100%. That helps a lot. And, those 2 screens against UTEP that make the game way closer than it needs to be. There's some relation to run defense, right? And that's not going to show up on the stat sheet. So you're maybe cheating a bit. But they do rank better than Oregon State as far as a run defensive
I think they've
team.
been the second best run defense in the conference.
And I like the
behind
front,
UNLV.
man. The front is getting into the backfield plenty often. And that's without Gakuth, right? So what could you do to improve that? I think the run defense shows that. I think I would like more than 5 sacks at this juncture of the season, given the talent. But again, your best pass rusher hasn't been able to be on the field as much as you'd like. It's the rest of that defense that's got to figure it out. And then, as you said, the explosives. It doesn't matter what offense you're running. The concept was the same, right? You can go air raid and laser shows over the middle. That's only going to work until you find the explosives. And then the defense is in conflict of, well, do we stop the crossers or do we stop the... You want to run the Mike Shanahan offense? Cool, sounds good to me. Get those stretch runs. Avery Morrow's looked awesome. I love Marshall. But then off of that, you need to build some explosives as well. Give me a quick stars that need to show up. Who's got to show up? Like the number of power rankings, top 5. Who's got to show up the most?
I think Braden. I mean, I think he has to make some of the plays that got us so excited in the first place, because he has plenty of arm talent. Like he has done some genuinely special things out there and made some throws that we haven't seen any CSU quarterback make.
Even the interception against UTEP. It goes from being like, wow, he's such an amazing athlete running away from those 2 defenders and avoiding a safety and making it look like it's nothing, throwing a laser down the sideline, and then it's the same thing we've said for a couple years. The accuracy on the move has been lacking, right?
Yeah.
And so he can have such a cannon when he's dead to rights in the pocket, staring down pressure. He's got to convert that third down. We've seen him pull out some great throws. But there, you have a whole window on the...
feels like.
Yes.
He's got to trust himself. He's got plenty of arm talent. I do think there was a miscommunication with the receiver there on that pick. I think the receiver was supposed to come back. Didn't. The DB makes a play on the ball. Either way, though, you're backed up deep in your own territory. It's just the type of turnover you can't have. They've had far too many of those this year, and that's kind of been I think that really sums up CSU as a whole through this first third of the season, is that it's not like it's a disaster for 60 minutes. It's not, CSU in 2018 under Bobo, which is genuinely just a bad team. It's not, CSU the second half under Adazio, where it's just for 4 straight quarters. Yeah. There's nothing you can see that gives you hope other than Trey McBride.
Well, and the offense was like just straight depressing.
Oh, it was brutal. The problem is I feel like there's 3 or 4 moments on both sides of the ball that are just backbreaking. Like, it's untimely penalties against CU and some really dumb offensive turnovers. It's the 2 blown plays in coverage against UTEP that allow it to be a 1-score game in the fourth quarter instead of a 30-point win. You can say the same thing about UNC. You played pretty well for the most part, but you still give up, you have a dumb turnover, then you give up an explosive play for a touchdown, allow another explosive play later on. It's not 60 minutes of slop or anything like that, but they still have far too many of these really untimely mistakes. And for a program in year 3 with the continuity they have on both sides of the ball, you would expect a significantly cleaner and more consistent product on both sides of the ball.
Totally, man. And I think one of the themes for us of the Norvell era has been, one of the goals is getting out of those losing habits that he inherited when he took over the program, right? And I think in some ways, and it's right, I love to get into the schematics. This is very big picture. I think some of it is still trying your best to get out of that.
Yeah, I think at times you still see a team that plays scared, that plays not to lose versus playing to win. I think a lot of that is deep rooted in the demons and the skeletons they have in their closet based on past experiences. How you get out of that, I don't know. I do think that the baggage associated with this job is for real. I mean, the expectations from the fans are to be one of the better teams in the league, to do what was done under Sonny Lubick and then a small flash in the pan under Jim McElwain. Whether that's super realistic or not, I think is debatable on multiple levels, but that is the expectation. That's what you're walking into. We saw him obviously win at a high level at Nevada. You assumed he would be able to do it with better resources at CSU. It's win time, man. They've got to figure it out, because with everything that's happening with the program, new AD, I mean, there's so much pressure. Kind of going back to what you said, if we had to power rank the stars, because I got us a little sidetracked there. I think BFN would be 1. I think Tory is 2, because they don't have anything in the passing game right now.
He's starting to show up on like biggest draft fallers lists.
Well, he hasn't been able to do what he has, hopes to be.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Injuries are obviously a big part of that, but I mean, coming back and durability are part of what he needed to show. So he needs to ball out.
Yep.
3rd, I think you could go a lot of ways. I'm going to go Justin Marshall, though, because I think Avery has been really solid, especially these last couple weeks.
Damn straight.
Justin Marshall, at times, I feel like he misses some reads, runs into his blocking a little too frequently, misses some chances to bounce it. He's so explosive, though. He's such a home run hitter that he's the kind of guy that can change the game with 1 or 2 touches. If you can get him the ball in some space on a quick screen, on a pitch outside a sweep, whatever you can do to get him in some space with some blocking up front, they need to create explosive plays. It's going to be a physical game because both of these teams have 2-headed monsters in the backfield. They want to lean on that ground game. CSU is going to continue to run the ball. I'm just going to drill that home. I know it frustrates some people. They believe that is their best path to success this year, so they're going to lean on it, and they've had success, so they're not going to go away from it. Create those opportunities over the top, up the seam, through play action. I felt like they did it a little bit against UNC, and then Tory got hurt, and it kind of changed everything, and they went kind of back into the shell again.
Yeah.
I think you need some big plays, because if your plan is to just outrun them between the tackles 4 or 5 yards a pop all night, Oregon State is better at that than you.
There's no doubt about it. There just isn't.
Couple other keys, and then we'll get into Dre's thoughts on the Pac-12 stuff. I'll talk about that more tomorrow as well. The addition of Gonzaga, how big that is. That's basically all we've talked about is the Pac-12 stuff the last week. So I really wanted to focus on this Oregon State game. Real quick, though, I do want to shout out our friends over at Coors Light. Between work, social media, the choices life throws our way, it's no wonder we're worked up. Shout out to everybody in the Toyota chat with the well wishes. The support I've received from the CSU community has been overwhelming these last couple weeks. Genuinely, so much love to all of you. But guys, I've been tested the last couple weeks in terms of like how I'm gonna deal with all of what life has thrown at me. Am I gonna be, pissy? Am I gonna be no fun to be around? Am I gonna let all this stress overwhelm me, or am I gonna find ways to deal with it? And I've had to go on walks. I've had to do breathing exercises, push-ups. You got to do what you got to do.
Choose and chill.
I'm choosing chill. And then when I'm kicking back, I'm watching football, I'm having a good time. Then I crack open that ice cold Coors Light. When the mountains turn blue, it's as cold as the Rockies, cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill. Choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Dre.
I'm firing up the Game Time app
I'm glad you are,
J-Mike.
Because
right now.
They're the best. They're the best in the biz. And every single week, they are making it easier than ever for you guys to get access to great deals. They have a new feature called Game Time Picks, which makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. The thing about Game Time is they have such an insane selection that it can almost be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So what they did was, we're going to introduce this little filter, Game Time Picks. We're going to get all the fluff out, only show you the best of the best, so you don't have to waste your time coming through thousands of tickets. They've got everything. They've got stand-up comedy. They've got theater. They've got concerts. They've got every sport in the world, basically. I mean, you could go to the Broncos this weekend, big-time matchup against the Raiders. They've got great deals on Rams tickets all
Yes,
season
sir.
long.
I love the app. You can see what your seat's going to look like on the app. They've got Rams volleyball on here. You want to take over the Springs, right? The Air Force
Yeah.
game is in the Springs. You can do that.
Make it FOCO South.
You got Pids fever because they're in that playoff hunt.
bound,
They
up
got
the
you
Pids.
covered. Broncos Raiders, bang bang, best deals in town. You name it, Game Time has you covered.
Comedy shows, concerts,
Everything.
Everything. Man.
Everything.
Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account. Redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Damn straight.
Seriously, guys, up the Pids. I know last night was disappointing, but got a big one coming up this weekend.
We'll be all right.
Need that seating.
Hell yeah.
We talked about the stars needing to shine. We've talked about needing to create explosive plays offensively. You got to stop the run, obviously. Oregon State, they've got a two-headed monster in the backfield with Anthony Hankerson, former Buff, and Jamoyus Griffin, more of their home run hitter. They're really dangerous. And if you allow them to get into second and third and short consistently, that's their bread and butter. You've got to get stops, in particular on first down. But when you get into third and long, you've got to get off the field. And that's been a bugaboo for CSU these last couple of years. The 3rd and 8s that they give up, you get them in 3rd and 12, and you get a 15-yard penalty. Like, you can't have any of that when you're a double-digit dog on the road. You basically got to play a perfect game.
That red zone defense.
I'm glad you brought that up because
and you can't fall behind, man.
That's one of the biggest keys right now for CSU. Opponents have scored a touchdown on 11 of 12 trips to the red zone against CSU. They've given up scores on all 12 trips. CSU, I think they've scored a touchdown on 5 of 11 trips to the red zone. So essentially, you're only scoring a touchdown half the time when you get to the red zone. You are allowing a touchdown 100% of the time. That's not a recipe for success. Modern defense, it's not giving up 180 yards anymore. It's bend, don't break. And
Correct.
You can allow them to run the ball with some success if you're able to hold them to 3, if you're able to get some stops there. That's a big key for CSU, in particular in a close game of finding a way to flip it. Is can you hold them to 3? Can you get 7 when you have an opportunity?
Well, and big thing to me is also going to be controlling the score. If you can stay in the game for 4 quarters, you don't allow Oregon State to just go all in on the run game and really lean into their identity.
That's huge too. That's a great point. Right? If you go down early, you are putting yourself. It's a lot like playing Air Force. They want to run the ball on you. They want to control clock. They want to shorten the game. If you're CSU, you need to find ways to have success. Obviously, you can't turn the ball over. You want to shorten the margins any way you can. You got to win the turnover battle. You got to win on special teams, penalties. Other than CSU has actually been a very disciplined team from penalties. It hasn't been as prevalent as an issue as it was the last couple of years. But it did show up in your biggest game of the year so far, and this is probably the second biggest game. So you've got to basically just play a really clean product.
I think that starts with the offensive line. I think the offensive line has been a bit, they just keep getting better, cleaner. They're doing a better job run blocking. They're able to lean into that as an identity. I wonder if they're still lacking some of the horses to be at that level in pass pro. And that's where a team like a front like Oregon State's might test them a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's another one.
They've had some lapses too. I think they were more consistent in pass protection a year ago than they have been this year.
Yes, agreed.
Especially if you're trying to stretch the field, you need to give Braden some time to do so. So that's a great key. I'm glad you brought that up.
Especially since he operates from within the pocket.
And that's where he wants to play. I do think, being able to create some opportunities on some bootleg stuff, let him run a little bit. He can move. I think that's good. But where he wants to operate is out of the pocket.
Yeah.
You can do that even on play action. You can take some shots over the top, in particular if you're attacking the middle of the field there. As some people are saying in the Toyota chat here, Henry, number 2 has to be Armani for how sought out of a transfer he was. Those drops were brutal. Yeah, he's had some untimely drops, which has definitely been disappointing. It was really encouraging to me, though, that he then followed up 2 brutal drops with the best catch of the season that we've seen so far in the end zone against UTEP.
Catch. Yeah.
He has all the talent to be a star. Now he needs to be more consistent. But the drops haven't just been an Armani issue. I mean, Vincent Brown dropped what should have been a touchdown last week. Goodies had some moments. Jamari Person had a drop a couple weeks ago. So everybody across the board out wide needs to step up. Having Tory out there, assumingly, is going to take a lot of the attention. Yeah. So, you should have an opportunity here for some other guys very similarly to, I think back to going to Boulder last year and Lewis Brown had a massive game, going on the road against UNLV, and Justice Ross Simmons had a big game. You need that number 2 receiver to step up. Obviously, both of those are losses. You're hoping for a better outcome.
And it starts, though, with them being able to be number 2s and not have to be improvised number 1s.
100%.
Yeah.
We're going to get into some thoughts on the league as a whole here. As Taylor says in the Toyota chat, Justin, excited for Swolapalooza tonight. I'm tingling with anticipation.
That's an amazing way to put it.
Yeah, I'll be on with Swole tonight, 8 p.m. Mountain to 9 p.m. Mountain. We're talking hoops. We're talking Gonzaga. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited to get into college basketball these next couple of weeks. I think the Rams are sneaky frisky. I think not necessarily NCAA tournament or bust this year just because they have so many moving parts, so much production to replace. But if we looked up come February and they're right there in the mix, I don't think it would be surprising at all. Oregon State, though, man, 267 yards a game on the ground, 3 rushing touchdowns. You got to stop the run to have any chance. And I know, saying
that's their identity.
If you're CSU with the worst pass defense in the Mountain West, you're daring an opponent to beat you through the air is maybe a risky proposition, but this is their bread and butter. And if you get torched over the top, but you stop the run, you probably can live with it. But this is a big opportunity for the secondary to step up and make some plays against a QB who is frankly fairly average from an arm talent standpoint.
Yeah, and runner pass, the back 7's got to make tackles.
It's going to be huge. If you're giving up explosive runs and they're going for 6-7 plus a pop, you're in a horrible spot.
Forget it. Something's got to change. And you know, Howell, Blackburn, Wilson, there are guys who
are there
to get it done. So you
got to play. I want to see discipline. I want to see good tackling. Obviously, you can't have the personal fouls and stuff that hold you back and end up killing what are productive stretches from the defense. Again, it's not like it's all bad. I think that's the most frustrating thing with this defense is I think you get 50 to 60% really good most of the game. You get about 10 to 20% pretty bad, and you get 10 to 20% catastrophic. You just got to limit some of these explosive plays you're allowing, the boneheaded penalties, and take advantage when you get teams into 3rd and long. I think that's going to be a big key for CSU in this one. Can you get early stops? Can you get off the field? If so, you give yourself an opportunity. Big game. This is a massive game for the Rams, a huge statement opportunity. You win this game, you all of a sudden, you're feeling why can't we push for the Mountain West Championship? Because we don't play UNLV or Boise State. Fresno looked human, and they looked bad against UNLV. I don't want to overreact too much to that, but Dre's kind of been fading Fresno for a while, so a little bit validating on his end.
Oh, yeah. No, you turn your season around.
Yeah.
If you go into Mountain West play 3-2, coming off a big win in Corvallis against the Beavers, you have flipped your season. Plain and simple.
Well, and people forget, before CSU went out on the road and beat Boston College, yes, they beat CU, but it wasn't the expectations that year where they were going to be a 10-win team. I think the hope was, especially coming off of the strong close to 2013 in the New Mexico Bowl, let's see this team win 7-8 games, really get it going. Then all of a sudden, you go and beat Boston College on the road after losing a tough one against Boise on the road. And from there, just everything flips. You rattle off, I think it was a 9-game win streak. Still lost to Air Force in the Springs. It's a house of horrors down there. But these are transformative moments when you go out and you steal a win that you weren't supposed to get. And it's just been far too long, as we alluded to, at the beginning there, with CSU's lack of basically premier road wins. There haven't been that many exciting home wins either, to be fair. But
Correct.
These are the moments. You've got a really favorable back half of the schedule against a lot of inexperienced teams. That said, based on how this has started, because you weren't able to steal one early, sitting there at 2-4, 2-5 is realistic. So how can you respond in these next 2 weeks and really pivotal swing moments for you, not just this season, but for your entire program. Like this regime, like the next 2-3 weeks could basically define, are we having a coaching search discussion come December, or are we having, a bowl preview?
All of the commitment that's been made from the athletics program standpoint the last half decade at minimum feels kind of on the line right now, right? Is it time to just click the reset button and blow the whole thing up? Or is there something there
to build
off of, right? So it's huge, man. It's huge, plain and simple.
Huge moment. Shout out to everybody in the Toyota chat. I agree. Dre is spitting bars as he always does. I don't want to focus too much on the Pac-12 stuff, even though it's obviously massive, just because I've talked so much about it these last couple of weeks, and I'm going to focus on it really heavy tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I have not. It's been a lot of me monologuing. We did have Kevin Lytle on the pod this past week. Big shout out to him. What are your thoughts on all of this? The move to the Pac-12, does it make sense? You see a lot of people trying to argue it's no different than being in this updated Mountain West. To me, that's absurd. How is being with the top half of the league versus the half that got left behind the same, especially now that you add Gonzaga? Just what are your thoughts on all this?
No, I mean, such a natural, beautiful upgrade. It's in a lot of ways, it's what I've been talking about for a couple of years with these conference realignments. It's IP acquisition. The Pac-12 just acquired the Mountain West IP, right? But is able to then put it under their umbrella, which historically has proven to be able to generate more revenue, specifically TV revenue. Look, the need for West Coast football, especially later in the evenings, is never not going to be there for the TVs, right? There's just enough TV providers, enough apps, cable providers, you name it, to where you need a West Coast league. And this fills that void under a brand that is well established and has, until recently, a nice established earning TV rights deal that is certainly more lucrative than the Mountain West. You're able to get rid of a little bit of the riffraffs, let's say. Shout out to Wyoming and Air Force. Love you guys. And it positions you nicely to now you're there. You just added Gonzaga, right? Which I think makes a nice splash on the basketball side. You're positioned to be in that spot to make some moves on the next potential free agents, dissatisfied.
That's the thing I think that gets often overlooked in all this. Is this isn't a finished product. Right. This is about positioning yourself and staying relevant in this ever-changing landscape.
No doubt.
I said last week on the pod, are we on a speedboat right now? No, but we are on a life raft out, which is the difference between where the Pac-12 is going versus like the American or the Mountain West right now. It's just lost its best brands after already having lost Utah and BYU and TCU. It's just too many good schools to have lost over the year to retain that status of what it once was. I, in my heart, am a Mountain West guy. I'm happy the Mountain West is going to live. I'm happy it's not just going to fall apart. I think they've done a good job, all things considered, patching some holes. We'll see what happens now. It sounds like they're exploring Hawaii as a full member, which I don't know about that from a travel standpoint. But
I think the only misstep the Pac-12 has made to this point is not including UNLV in the original.
Yeah, you probably should have went after UNLV from the start. I also think
hindsight's 2020 though. But.
Well, again, maybe this is me being an optimist and trying to frame it through a lens that's more desirable for the outcome that I want. I don't think the Pac-12 was willing to overpay for UNLV or Memphis, and I feel like they got the brands they truly wanted. They do want a regional footprint. They want the base of this league to be West. I think they basically were willing to float the invite, say, if we can get you for cheap, absolutely. If not, we'll see what's out there, and we're going to play our cards right. We're going to really invest in basketball. I think they always knew that Gonzaga was a big focus for them. There's a lot of people that will sit and tell you that college basketball does not matter. For a lot of programs, that is true. When you add a premier program like Gonzaga, a true top 10 program in all of basketball, that's a blue chip program.
Yeah.
They will increase the media value rights. I think TNT is a huge factor to look into all this. They're already investing in the Big East now that they don't have the NBA going forward. think it makes a lot of sense to then also have a West Coast footprint. We'll see what happens all there. That's just me.
Also, college hoops with NIL, I do think, has started to kind of change things where like the product was just kind of decreasing a little bit.
You're
right?
getting experienced players again, which helps the quality of play.
Dude, you're paying some of the top international kids and they're leaving Europe to come. You know, like they're
really good
leaving
point.
being like the top academies overseas to now be in college hoops. So I think that product might, like, I think it might be a little underrated right now.
I think it absolutely is. I think people have
And you're
undervalued
buying low a
college
little
basketball.
bit. Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
the Mountain West or the Pac-12 in particular, you know, you get all this backlash of you're not going to be a Power 4 conference. I know that. Nobody is sitting here with a straight face and saying this is the old Pac-12. This is on par with the SEC. What it is going to be is the clear-cut fifth best football league, what you want to call it, whatever. And it's going to be the fifth or sixth best basketball league. It's going to be right there with the Big East, especially, you know, if you end up pulling a Memphis, who I expect, as Ant says here in the Toyota chat, I fully expect Memphis to come on board at some point. I think it's just working out the financials as of now. I think they'll probably highly consider adding like a GCU as a basketball only member, just because you get that Phoenix market, you get a program that is highly invested in hoop success, is going to go to the tournament, you know, year in and year out. And I think there's value in branding yourself as the premier West Coast college basketball conference. You can say like it's maybe not quite a power conference on the football side. It is going to be a power conference on the hoop side. And I'm really excited.
And I mean, you can argue all you want and talk in hypotheticals all you want. The reality is, I think it's much better to be in this new Pac-12 than it is in the old Mountain West. So,
if the faces of your league moving forward are UNLV and Air Force, I think that's a tough sell. If that is the tippy top of what you bring to the table, that's not a conference that I think long-term has a ton of viability. Now, we'll see. Again, I'm not rooting against the Mountain West. I understand that this whole process gets complicated, and I know I've hurt the feelings of some people that have supported me from the Wyoming and the Air Force side, and I get it. You know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you to be happy about the situation, because I would not be either. But I also think you have to look at the situation logically, and if you're CSU, would you rather be associated with Oregon State, with Washington State, with Gonzaga, with Boise, with San Diego, or do you want to be associated with UTEP and UNLV and Air Force and San Jose State? And when you frame it like that, I don't really think it's even a debate. So I'll talk more about the Pac-12 and the hoop stuff tomorrow. I'll also talk about it tonight with Swole on his show. We've got plenty of time to talk about Gonzaga. I'm so excited for the first time they come to Moby Arena. We do need to do Mountain West power rankings, though, because we're a third of the way through the season now, so it's a good opportunity to look at it. We'll do it weekly from here on out, especially as we get all these conference matchups. We'll start at the bottom, we'll go to the top, and then we'll get out of here with some Mountain West picks.
no, quick break.
Oh, we can do that, yeah. Shout out to Premier Members Credit Union. They're not a typical bank. They do things a little bit differently. They're a financial institution based right here in Colorado with PMCU. You get local branches, friendly tellers, and the tools you need to save smarter, like a reverse tier money market. Whatever your goals, they can help. PMCU is about creating a better banking experience for their community. It's helping you get ahead and then stay ahead in this economy, which can be really challenging. So why not see what they can do for you? Check out becomepremier.com and find out more. I also want to talk to you guys about an awesome initiative from our friends at UC Health. Yeah. UC Health wants to help you and other Coloradans be your healthiest self by joining the Ready, Set, Co challenge. One of the pillars in this year's challenge is sleep. Jay, with everything I've had going on, I'll be honest, I've not slept very well the last couple of weeks, and you just feel it. Like, not only do you feel run down, but I can tell from a production standpoint, it's like, yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm locked in, but I just don't have that extra gear. I'm not as good of a writer. I don't feel like I'm as bright, on the podcast. You feel it in every single element. And when you get those 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep, it's
Everything
a game
changes.
changer.
Yep. Nutrition's a big one as well. I mean, I didn't have a good lunch yesterday and I was destroyed the rest of the day. Yeah, I went to bed early. That's how I chose chill yesterday. I had to go to bed early because sleep's so important, man. Once in a while, I need it. Like,
you
just
got to get it
going in
also
bed at
while you
9.
can before we get here into like the late night college football season. Nuggets and Avs back, a lot of 8 and 8:30 starts. Don't sleep on sleep, guys. The older I get, the more I value a good 9 p.m. bedtime when you get the opportunity. If you want UC Health's Ready, Set, Co challenge, click the link in the show notes or go to www.uchealth.org/Ready, Set, Co. Shout out to everybody in the Toyota chat rocking with us this morning. It's been popping. It's been awesome to see. I appreciate everybody being flexible these last couple of weeks and tuning in on the audio side with me not being in studio. We do have a question here from Henry. Question to the Rams. Do we still want Norvell even if we end with a bowl? It's year 3 and we're switching offensive identities and defenses. Is this really the long term we think wins in the pack? I mean, I think it's a fair question, and I think a lot of that comes down to the eye test. You know, what do you look like in these next? Do you eke out a 6-6 season without a single relevant win, or can you turn a corner here? You know, I think it's a little bit too early to answer that with any type of honesty, because again, if you go out and you win this game against Oregon State, everybody feels so much better. And it's like, yeah, it sucks that they didn't show more against CU and Texas, but they probably just overthought it a little bit. Now you're in the winnable portion of your schedule. I mean, at times as fans, we can blow a little bit too much with the wind, and we got to kind of see here how these results play out. But I think being skeptical at this point is more than fair. And again, I come back to the fact that, yes, you are 2-2, which is where you always expected to realistically be. You would have loved to have beaten CU. But realistically, given the series history, 2-2, you know, you beat the 2 teams you were favored against, lost to the 2 teams you were underdogs against. Mm-hmm. But it just has not, every win and loss is kind of ranked differently. And they haven't shown the potential that we think that this group has with the experience and the talent. So I think they got to pass the eye test is the long-winded point there. Sorry for rambling and making a meal out of it. But
the other thing is, like, Norvell was a great hire for the Mountain West. I think with the Pac-12 looming over you, there is, and potential revenue increases and everything that comes with that, it is much more of a, you know, being on the chopping block.
Well, the Pac-12 move,
even regardless of how the season's gone this far,
added even more pressure. There was already a pressure and an expectation that this season was postseason or bust with 7 home games, with the lack of rivalry success. I mean, Norvell's 0-6 or 0-7 now in rivalry games. So, like, that was already looming. Then you have the Pac-12 move, which adds even more pressure. You have a administration change, you know, since being hired, that adds more pressure to it. That's just being real. Like, ADs want their own guys. And while Weber and Norvell had a pre-established relationship, given Weber's tenure with the green and gold guard at the same time, he's not the guy that signed off on that hire. He is the guy that's signing off on the move to the Pac-12. He might decide, you know, this is my legacy that goes along with this. And he could also just decide that, you know, frankly, we didn't see enough growth in year 3 for a program that had this talent, had big expectations, had a schedule that was favorable. They got to show a lot here. And I think the next month really kind of dictates,
no doubt,
where this thing is heading.
Well, that's what regular dad bod's saying. That's what I was saying in the preseason. I really think it comes down to conference play. That's what he should be graded on. It was always on the schedule going to be a bit of a wacky non-conference slate, especially with Oregon State kind of starting your conference play, but not really.
When you just play such a variety of, like, UTEP and UNC are on this end of the spectrum. Texas and CU, from an athletic standpoint, are on this end of the spectrum. We haven't really seen them, at least in theory, play a team that should be more on par. Now, again, if you're going to be skeptical, I would say it was worrisome that UTEP and Northern Colorado felt like comparable levels of competition based on the eye test and the way those games played out.
And that you struggled to punch up against Texas or Colorado.
And I think there are some scheme things you did that held you back, because I think you got too conservative and played not to lose versus playing to win. You know, you didn't see them come out and, you know, really take some shots. But at the same time, if you did in that game and you get blown out, you could be critical either way. But these next couple of weeks are huge for the program, point blank period. They either figure it out, you get something rolling, you give the fans something to believe in, or I think a large majority of the fan base will be out by, you know, November 1st. So we'll see what happens. We'll see how CSU responds. Even if you don't win this game, you sure as hell got to show a lot more than you showed against CU in Texas to get anybody having any type of belief going into the conference slate. Because frankly, a lot of those games that, coming into the year, you probably felt like were gimme wins. San Jose State, Nevada, New Mexico, not one of those is a gimme win. They all look tougher than you anticipated. San Jose State is probably the most surprising to me, just with how explosive they've been offensively. But, Nevada is tough, and they're going to be up for that game. New Mexico, like Devin Dampier is good enough to beat you by himself. Now, they are so bad defensively that I think you're going to be okay in that one, but doubt him at your own risk. I'll say that.
No doubt.
Let's get into the power rankings and let's get some picks, and then we'll get out before we move on. Regular dad bod. That is a good point, kind of going in line with everything we've said. I hate the idea of rebuilding yet again. That is the very tough situation. If you do make a staff change, are you going to lose all this young talent that you've been excited about? It's not a given. We've seen Barry Odom come in and be able to retain some guys. We've seen it work, but it's far from a guarantee.
Turnovers come in it's to what degree, one way or another.
Yeah, there will be some element of it. It's just, is it a total rebuild or is it, typical stuff?
Yeah.
Starting at the bottom of the power rankings, and then we'll do our picks and get out of here. Feels unreal to put a Troy Calhoun team at the bottom, but I think Air Force, they have not looked like Air Force. Their defensive line is still solid. They're frisky enough defensively to hang around. Offensively, it's as bad as it's been since 2013 when they went 2-10. Like they just have not been able to run the ball. The guy they have under center does not look comfortable running the option offense. But it would be typical Ram life for them to figure it out here these next 2 weeks, like right in time for CSU.
Yeah, their point differential is the only thing that's maybe a little comforting. 50 points scored, 85 against. So, that's a minus 25. The record would make you think that's way more brutal, but that's Air Force being able to keep games short too.
That's a good point. They're going to limit possessions. Also, like, early on in the year, I think you felt a little better about what they did against Baylor versus now what we've seen Baylor to be. They did hold San Jose State to 17 points, which based on everything else is pretty encouraging. But
yeah.
I put Air Force at the bottom simply because they lost the head-to-head against Wyoming this past week, who we have at 11. Wyoming 1-4. They've got a lot of experience defensively, so I think they'll still be relatively competitive in conference play. Like, I think they'll be in games. Offensively, we'll see.
Yeah, from a Rand standpoint, if there was ever a year to beat them both,
you have to.
If
you can't beat these teams, fold it up, because they suck. They suck, and I'm not a guy that comes on and says that type of stuff pretty often.
No.
I understand it's a rivalry game. I understand the context. I'm never going to overlook those teams, but they aren't any good. And you are in year 3 in your program. You've got all this star power. I'm sick of it, as are all the other CSU fans. I'm tired. Oh, Air Force, they're tough. And Troy Calhoun, I don't care. They're terrible. Go down, find a way to win.
They definitely are. If you were ever going to beat them, this is the year, though. That's not up for debate.
No, that's what I'm saying. If you can't beat this Air Force, when are you going to beat them?
We're not overlooking them. We're not underestimating the importance of those 2 games this year of all years. But if there was also true that if there was ever a year, this is the year.
Better be.
That's the takeaway from these power rankings.
Maybe some controversy with these next couple of rankings. I've got Utah State at 10, sitting there at 1-3.
Mm-hmm.
I think Utah State, this could really get away from them here in a hurry. They were just in such a tough spot, and it's kind of playing out as expected.
Yep. Jalen Royals, their wide receiver, getting some draft buzz. That's I'll keep it positive because you took care of the rest.
Then we're going San Diego State at 1-3. They do have some athletes.
Did you almost say some athletes?
Yeah,
that'd be cool. They might. They might. They looked goal for this week is look better than San Diego State looked against Oregon State. Kept it close, but they did get shut out partially because they fumbled on the goal line against the Beavers. Look better than San Diego State looked against Oregon State.
That's a good point.
And you could feel better about things next week.
And they blew a dumb one against Central Michigan this past week. They were up. miss 2 field goals in the fourth quarter, then Jimmy Mack and CMU steal one late. That is a program that I think a couple years from now could really be something with Sean Lewis, especially if they can finally get that offense rolling. Never understood how a quarterback hotbed area like Southern California has not been able to produce a QB at San Diego State.
Been a problem for a while, though.
Number 8, we're going New Mexico at 1-4, and that is because I am that high on Devin Dampier. They have the worst defense in the league, and they just gave up 40 to a New Mexico State team that's like 2 weeks removed from getting shut out by Fresno State. That said, Devin Dampier he's been the best quarterback in the comp. He turns the ball over a little bit too much, but he has to be Superman for them to even have a chance, and he makes throws that nobody else does. He makes runs that nobody else does. I hope they can hang on to him because he's going to get a mil plus in the portal this offseason.
I told you, my best call all season.
You were spot on.
I love the kid. When I studied him, I had him as like the third toughest. I don't know. What was it?
You had him as QB3 on your QB power rankings coming into the year, just behind BFN and Keene. And he's QB1 right now based on how the season has played out.
It's amazing. That said, they are a legitimately bad team at 21 other starting spots. It's why they're 1-4.
But that's what makes what they're doing offensively so impressive is that it's like, man, he's a beast. He's making Luke Wysong look like an all-conference wide receiver, like 5'10" white dude.
2 thoughts. So they're a bad team, but they're like frisky if you're better like us, right? But yeah, they're 1-4. I know economically it probably didn't make any sense. They're the team I will miss the most from the Mountain West.
I love Albuquerque. I talk about it all the time. The food is good. Awesome. It's fun to go down there. New Mexico basketball is obviously elite.
Elite.
I would have been
I would miss the Pit. If it was us, swap them out for Utah State immediately.
Yeah. I mean, Utah, I think it's a complicated argument because you're only like an hour from Salt Lake City, but you're not really getting Salt Lake City by adding Utah State, because to me that's like a lot like the Tulane argument where it's like you get Louisiana, and I'm like, nobody in Louisiana cares about Tulane. Everybody's an LSU and Saints fan.
Yeah, you're kind of getting that metro area, right?
But that's really what it's about is
well, I know, which
Salt
is
Lake.
why the UNLV thing is a little weird, but whatevs.
I will say you don't need UNLV for access to Vegas. You can still have the Pac-12 tournament there. You could host neutral site games there.
For sure.
Also, UNLV ranks in the hundreds in viewership. So, like...
Yeah, that's the thing. I think we overrate, especially as a TV market, Las Vegas.
Number 7, we're going
People
Hawaii.
watching TVs out there.
Hesitantly. They're 2-2.
Other things to do.
They look bad on the road. They look good at home. They are typical Hawaii.
Do not trust them, but 2-2 with a positive point differential. Can't argue with that. Good call by you. I'm very interested to see where they're at in year 2 in Mount West play.
Big game this weekend for Hawaii at San Diego State. We'll get into those here in just a sec when we rapid fire through some picks.
Yeah.
We got Nevada at 6, probably the surprise team of the league, sitting here at 2-3.
Yeah.
Offensively, they're limited. Lubick is doing a great job getting Brendan Lewis playing to his strengths, allowing him to run around. They run the ball.
Gross.
They brought some Texas transfers in that have helped them on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I also wonder if it was classic, like new coach, have some juice early season. Eventually, the lack of depth shines through as the year goes on, and you kind of feel that.
They're 2-3. They have scored as many points as they have allowed. I'm interested to see what they can do in Mount West play.
I am too. Jeff Choate doing a really good job, though. I think that was a great hire. We got CSU at 5, sitting at 2-2. I think you could argue either way that they should be above or below Nevada. I think that 5-6 range is right where they should be. I think CSU has more star power on both sides of the ball. I'm betting on Horton and Gatkuth being injected back into the lineups, being the difference over the next couple weeks.
Yes, this tier is the wait and see. What will Mountain West play tell us? That's where Rams, Nevada, and Hawaii fall right now.
All right, rounding out the top 4, we got Fresno coming off of a beatdown at UNLV. Looked really rough. They still force a lot of turnovers defensively, so I'm still intrigued by them. But man, UNLV beat their ass. San Jose State, they're the surprise team in the league, sitting here at 3-1. They haven't really beaten anyone, but they did
It's an
hang
important
against
point.
Wazoo, and they put up a lot of points.
Double overtime.
It was a great game. That was the game of the year so far.
Yeah.
And I know that was funny because that was the same weekend as CU Baylor, which was also an incredible game. But that San Jose State game for 4 quarters was electric.
Yeah, and they get Sac State. They win at Air Force, take care of business there.
Now we're really going to find out these next couple weeks, but
Yeah.
nobody anticipated that kind of start.
The promise is intriguing.
I've got UNLV at 1. I've got Boise at 2.
I don't think a ton of people would
Boise's
argue
higher
with you.
in the rankings in the AP poll right now. With what UNLV has done defensively, I just think they're so legit. And I think they're more versatile offensively. I understand that what GNT is doing, over 800 rushing yards, 10 yards a carry, asinine. What happens if anybody's able to slow him down and you force Maddox Madsen to have to beat you as a passer? I like UNLV better in those situations.
I think they're the better team, no doubt. I think this quarterback thing also looms over it. And I think Ashton Genty, I mean, it's just insane. You know, I'm flipping around all the late games. Every single drive I watched of Boise State, he's just doing high. You know how you want, like the end of the Georgia Alabama game was like that, where I'm on mute. I've got a few things going on. I'm like, wait, are they showing highlights from earlier in the game? Like, did I fall asleep? And is this really happening live right now? That's Ashton Genty for you. Is like,
It looks
am
like
I
you're
having
watching
a grandpa
Madden.
moment where like it's the highlights and I think it's the live game? No, it's the live game.
He had 4 runs last week, all of like 40, 50 plus yards that went to the house, where it's just like, you shouldn't be able to do that
ridiculous.
week in and week out.
It's ridiculous.
In particular, when they know you're going to get the ball. So Boise, I mean, it's why I was so high on them, was they return so much on the offensive line. I don't believe in Madsen as a quarterback, but I think they are so gifted, and their defense is really starting to play well. But UNLV is a legit college football playoff contender, and it's because that defense is not just good, they're elite. And offensively, I think they are better now that Haji Williams, because I think it is going to open up the pass game and it's going to allow you to maximize Ricky White, which was not happening with Sluka.
Yeah. Well, they've got one of the games of the week with Syracuse coming to town, and they're 6.5 point favorites.
I'm gonna save these picks for tomorrow because I want to be able to go more in depth on each of the matchups. We got to get out of here.
I like it.
But before we go, I will have you say CSU right now on Bet365, 11-point underdogs. Do they cover that spread?
Don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about it. I really don't. I think Corvallis is a very rough place to travel to. And I think, they're one-dimensional, but that one dimension they do really well. I mean, they were a top 25 team last year with the one dimension, and I just think those athletes at running back, quarterback, in the trenches are going to make the difference. And I think the Beavers cover, and I hope this proves to be a great jinx for the Rams.
Yeah, I have not seen enough to sit here with a straight face and say I feel like this team can go into this type of environment and pull it out.
Style points don't matter, but they
kind of do,
right?
in this
You can
one.
always turn it around. But yeah, I'm worried about what I've seen so far. I am.
It's a big prove-it game. I mean, like I said, this game could completely transform your season. It could completely change your mindset going into the rest of the year.
Oh, yeah.
It could also completely validate your worst possible outlook. So we shall see. A big one coming up for the Rams. Big prove-it opportunity. Been a long time since they have had a transformative road win. Now is the perfect opportunity to make a little bit of history. So shout out to Riley and Yaya behind the sticks, making all this come through. Shout out to all you guys in the Toyota chat rocking with us this morning. I'll be live tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be live Saturday night post game. We also will have a watch party at the DNVR bar if you want to come through. $4 house shots, all kinds of giveaways. It's going to be a great time. Much love, y'all. Always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.